Good evening. My name is Silver Underworld, and welcome to my channel called Silver Slumbers. I'm going to help you get those soothing Z's that you deserve. In today's video, I'm going to read true scary stories. Sit back, relax, and close those eyes, but be careful. Don't get lost in the dark. Okay, so I used to live in a small town in rural Canada. There was this old folks' home for the mentally unwell that was closed for a long time before I moved there. During the day, people would go on the property and hang out in the well-kept grass and trees. The town still took care of the surrounding grounds for the specific reason. The actual building was locked up, but teenagers would break into the building to basically scare themselves, myself included on a few occasions. Unusually, with 5 people or so, little drunk or a bit high, but even stone cold sober. It was lots of fun, probably due to the feeling of somewhat safe in numbers, and literally nothing actually happened that could be easily explained with logic. Noises, paper shifting, etc. Inevitably, the large group of teens that we were would make too much noise and the cops would get called. One night, me and my best friend, who is a serious skeptic, decided to break into a part of the building we knew hadn't been gotten into by anyone. This time, just the 2 of us, because the more people you bring, the more likely the police are going to show up due to a disturbance being called by someone living across the property. We've had to book it from the cops before, and we didn't want to tonight, especially if we were going to a place that no one has ever been to before. To get an idea of what it looks like, 5 stories tall with 4th and 5th stories high, making a slight tower jutting out from the middle, old brick in the front, modern cement blocks that were painted over, like in schools, at the back where you can tell stuff was added in years later. The newer parts of the building had been broken into by kids, a lot, but the main building had thick metal walls, and the windows that might be able to be open were on the 3rd story. Looks like an old school church, asylum, all cobbled together. There were other little structures around the main floor. Pool house, gymnasium, all ransacked by us idiot kids. Not the main floor of the old building though. We climbed onto the roof of the boiler room at the back of the building by piling up furniture debris we found on one of the ransacked storage buildings behind the main building. We pulled off one of the plywood covers, nailed over a hole in the roof for skylights or a missing vent, not sure, but that led into the boiler room and used the pipes along the ceilings and walls to climb down. This part of the building looked semi-modern, and you could tell that it was added closer to when it was closed. There was an exit that only opened from the inside, so at least leaving would be easy if needed. Me and my buddy are pumped at this point. The pipes made it easy to get down, and everything was going good as it could. We make it our way down from the room and find the door leading to the untouched main floor of the building. We're expecting the doors to be locked like all the other metal ones, but I opened with an achy, loud against the silence creak. The door opened to the middle of the hallway, leading left or right. The first thing we noticed, dust. Dust everywhere. It made a 1/4-inch film on everything. We both went right, as it led into an interesting looking main area with sheet cover furniture. We used our phone screens as lights and took a couple steps into the main room, and it hit me like a train. I'll try my best to phrase this understandably. All of a sudden, I feel sick. Not throwing up sick, but I'm gonna die sick. Like my brain said, Run. Leave. Escape. Now. I started shaking for no reason. It was so jarring. If I had to compare it to something, it felt like someone was right behind me with the intent to end me. It was weird because all of a sudden, it was like a switch went off. I was excited and positive upright until the point where I was convinced we were going to get jumped or murdered. I looked at my buddy and his face had the same expression of what I felt, genuinely terrified, white as a ghost. I think that it might have scared me more, honestly, because I've never seen him like that. Remember, neither of us saw anything at this point. No ghost, no distinct noise after the door creak, no creepy dolls or skeletons, just thick dust and sheets-covered furniture. It made no sense that I felt so threatened, and looking at my friend, I knew what he felt too. Without saying a word to each other, we turned our heels and walked towards the boiler room. We didn't even tell each other that either of us wanted to go. We just started walking back, tracking faster than we came in. I'm leading us at this point, and my blood ran ice cold when I noticed something on the side door that we left open. A set of fresh-looking footprints that led the left route of the hall. We both went right to the large main room. The prints were positively not ours. As we got closer, it got worse. Those footprints started 8 to 10 feet from the door in the middle of the hall. It looked like the person teleported 10 feet from the door mid-stride and walked the opposite way and around the corner. We booked out of there as fast as possible. Thank goodness there was an exit in the boiler room because I couldn't imagine climbing up those pipes in that panic. Literally never went back to that building. I asked my buddy if he saw anything on the way back to his house, and he said he saw the prints and noticed how far they were from the door, so I know I wasn't saying things. I'm an atheist. I don't have a good explanation for this, and I'd really love one. To clarify, we didn't see them appear. We saw them after they were been made, and they looked like they were new as ours. Bonus fact, the tower had a window on top, and some people claim that they could see someone standing in it at night sometimes. There was a couple of times when I swear something looked like it could be at the window. This happened before the whole incident happened, but it could easily just be my mind playing tricks. Me and my brother live in a house in a well-populated area. We know the neighbors fairly well, but aren't particularly friendly. We don't hate them, but we don't hang out or have grill outs or anything. Anyway, we were dead asleep the other night, and I heard what sounded like someone stomping up and down our porch. Thinking it was just my brain messing with me, like a dream I hadn't completely woken up from or something, I just ignored it and rolled over. Then I heard the doorknob jiggling on the front door. I grabbed something to defend myself and woke my brother to make sure someone else heard it too and that I wasn't going crazy. We both went to the front of the hall where the door was, and the doorknob was still shaking. We approached the door and my brother yelled, "You have exactly 3 seconds before you get more what you came here for." Then the jiggling stopped and a loud bang was heard like someone punched or kicked door. It didn't open and we didn't hear anything else. I turned the porch light on and peered out the window and saw no one. We both were a bit shook and went to sit down and try to relax. I was getting some water when the back door started having the same thing happening. Doorknob was violently shaking, like someone was really trying it. I didn't hesitate this time and threw the light on and looked out the back and saw no one. I turned the light off and started to back away. Then again, a loud bang, like someone kicked the door. I grabbed a weapon and opened the back door this time, ready to deal with the situation. No one was there. Not even the neighbor's dog was making a sound. I shut the door, locked it up, and went back to sit down. My brother and I talked a bit until we calmed down, and then we heard a loud laugh and then a scream from our backyard. I turned on the light onto the back porch. Once again, saw nothing. My brother heard it too. Even the neighbor's dog was reacting to the sound like something disturbed him. This was a week ago, and we haven't heard anything since. I don't know what this was, but I don't think my neighbors have any ill feelings towards us, so I can't say it was them messing with us, but like I said, I don't know what this could have been. So, I want to get this out of the way now. I live in Michigan. Not exactly the nicest area either. There have been multiple occasions, which have been caught on video, of people either trying to steal my mom's car, or 2 generators, which we used when our power goes out, because we don't have a lot of money and sometimes it goes off, or break into our house entirely. It's gone far enough for someone to break into our sunroof before our family dog scared them off. Anyways, we recently moved the camera, which does have a motion light on it, to the front fence to watch the cars. It was previously hooked up on the garage to get a view of the back. The reason for moving it was because we have a small driveway and can only park 1 car in it without things getting cramped. The garage itself holds 2 motorcycles. One is my brother's and one is my stepfather's. Now, I have had encounters with these people trying to break in before. I even caught the car that they were in, and I've caught them 3 times in the backyard. Now, we can get to the actual relevance to this whole post. 2 nights ago, I was towing the garbage out. It was 10:30 p.m., and I wanted to do it before I got in the game because I knew I'd forget it if I didn't. I tossed it in the bin, and there is considerable space between our 3 garage cans, and after I tossed it in, I heard something scurrying off. But without our motion light, I couldn't exactly tell what it was since it was pitch black outside. I wasn't exactly scared since one of our bins has a hole in it. We get a lot of raccoons all the time. I figure I scared it off. So later in the night, around 1:30 in the morning, I decided to hang with my brother for a bit, and we went riding around town on the motorcycle. And we got back 15 minutes later. He pulls into the driveway. And since we, as of now, are running off a generator, which can't power the garage, he tells me to pull the garage hood up manually while he backs his work truck up. He does repo, as in repossession of vehicles. So I opened it as he's backing up, and the red lights make sight actually possible in the backyard. When he's backing up, I heard something scurrying off on the side of the house again, and I turned my phone flashlight on this time, since I actually had it on me. I literally said the words out loud when my brother asked me what's wrong. Nothing, just a raccoon in the trash. Turn my light on. Boom. There's this I don't know. It didn't look like a dog, but it was on 4 legs, and that's all I could see before I screamed out loud and started bolting the other way. Now, it could have been a really big and fluffy dog, but this thing was massive. My brother's 200 pounds, and it was bigger than him, and it was big enough to break the hing on our fence. I didn't actually see it do this, since I was down the street. But now the fence has a padlock. The part that still confuses me is yesterday morning, I looked and there were no tracks, and the thing made no noise. I wanted to post this to see if anyone may have found help on what this was. But anyway, it's 3:50 in the morning, and remembering this thing terrifies me. I'll check the post tomorrow. Hey guys, I really need some support and advice, or anything you got. I'm stuck in this hotel for a work conference, and I opted for a cheap place outside the city to save some cash. It's not exactly luxurious, more like a hostel to be honest, with a shared bathroom and all that, but the room itself isn't too bad. Just a single bed and decent enough. But here's the thing, there's this creepy guy lurking around. I notice him hanging around the hallway, even when I just go out to pee. And get this, my room has this funky 2-door entrance that makes a ton of noise when you open it. And I'm not sure why. Maybe to keep things quiet? It is a sort of mini hallway. A first door to the corridor with a lock and the inside door without. It is important later on. Yesterday when I had to pee and left my room, I noticed the guy did the same thing immediately. That's when I knew something was up. So I had to play a little trick by pushing the inside door without opening the second. He heard it and ran down the stairs. Turns out, he was staying in a room right near mine, up small stairs directly on the left of my room. I didn't want to use the toilet during the night as I was afraid of meeting him. When I got back from my conference today, I heard him leaving his room right as I unlocked mine. I was freaked out immediately, went inside and locked the door. It happened again. When I went to use the bathroom, I couldn't see him, but I could hear that he was waiting outside his room. So I did the door pushing trick again, and like clockwork, he ran down the stairs. This guy stayed outside my room. I waited in my little entrance hall in complete silence until he went back to his room, trying not to make any noise, but I could still hear him, and it honestly freaked me out. I'm back in my room now, and I'm really scared. I know the door is locked, but the lock isn't super strong. I have no idea what this guy wants, so I'm just trying to stay quiet. It's weird to think that he could be dangerous, but I'm not taking any chances. I have contacted the owner of the place, and he told me he could indeed see the man on the CCTV. But I think it is probably a coincidence. My mom works at a college as a janitor. She has the midnight shift, 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. Each janitor work at a designated building and are alone at most nights. The building my mom starts at is a factory type of a building. The exterior part of the door has no handle and is impossible to open without a key. My mom drives a little truck to go from building to building. One day, as she was exiting her building, she closed the door and came upon something horrifying. It was a man without a shirt, covered in tattoos, about 10 feet away from her. My mom describes him as looking almost like a gangster. All of a sudden, he starts hopping like a kangaroo towards my mom. At that moment, my mom froze in panic, not knowing what to do. Since the door behind her closed, she had no way of quickly going back into the building since she had to unlock the door. My mom is very religious, and her first instinct was to start saying a prayer as this man hopped towards her. Now, my mom said this prayer silently, and she says the man stopped and started walking backwards away from her. She then got into her little truck and did a 3-point turn to head over to the other building. When she looked again, the man was gone. Nowhere to be seen. Now, It's not uncommon for my mom to stumble upon something strange on her job. She had doors shut on her, toilets flushed, and she even saw a man with glowing red horns on her way back from work. And she says this is by far the most terrifying incident she's experienced. Who or what could have been the person to scare my mom? I grew up in New York. My family has a vacation house in Albany that we go to whenever we have free time. I don't go there much anymore because I'm in my 20s and I'm busier with work. I also have some bad memories of that house, so I prefer not to sleep there. The house is big and really beautiful. It's by a lake, and it was actually a new building, so it's updated. I never liked it as a kid because of the things that I saw, though. During the day, the house was cool. Outside was nice and big, and sometimes my brother and I would play in the lake. At night, things would get really quiet, though, and the rooms didn't feel right. My brother and I would hear tapping on the walls, see flashes of light outside the corners of our eyes, and sometimes smell dirt. I hated the smell of dirt and soil. When we smelled the dirt, we would see a girl, maybe late teens, in the hall by our room. She never came really close to us, never said anything, just walked around, and her face was purple. The craziest memories I ever had was the smell of dirt, the silent rooms, and her just walking around. When my brother and I got a little older, we tried to see if anyone died on the land or on the lake, but we couldn't find anything. I do think someone suffocated or drowned in that lake because of the way she looked. I don't really like going back to the house, but my brother goes. He and I both haven't seen her since we were little, 13 or so. But whenever we were there, we both agreed that we smelled dirt at night. So I was asleep, and about 1 a.m., I was awakened by a loud pounding on my back door patio. My house is 2 stories high. My room is right above the back patio. It faces the backyard, so there was a loud banging, hard enough to shake my restroom window. Also facing the backyard, so there is a lock on the back porch and purposely sharp shards of wood above my gate. Doors are secured every night by yours truly because I am a paranoid person. So I checked my phone to see if it was someone from my house who forgot their keys, code to the door, or garage door opener not working. Half asleep, I stare at my phone and the pounding proceeds. So I get my gun and I'm on the phone with my daughter, asking if it was her at the door, and get down a flight of stairs. By this point, everyone is coming out of their rooms. I'm telling them to get back to their rooms. I get to the back door, and the pounding stops. My heart is pounding. I stayed up alert the rest of the night. When the sun was up, I inspected the sides of the house and backyard and patio. No footsteps. I looked by the fence, too. Nothing. Then, just like that, it stopped. My Nana told me that you should just ignore it, and so I did. Back when I worked at McDonald's, about 2 months ago, I would walk to either of the local Subway or Dairy Queen. The Subway was probably a good mile there and back. This was the first time I have ever walked out of town like that. I only went to get lunch. I had my AirPods in and heard someone yelling. I thought maybe someone was injured, so I turned around and found a large man with a bread in a pickup truck. He seemed nice enough. He said he was going to get Pizza Hut down the road from the Subway and he would drop me off. I said okay, because I didn't want to be rude after telling him no thanks a time or two. He drove me down the road and we talked for what felt like an hour, which in reality was only a minute. He was telling me how he was a good guy and how he doesn't do stuff like that. He didn't even state that he liked women, but not enough to kidnap or do anything bad. I said I like women too, and he said he can hook me up with his friend. I politely declined and started showing me naked photos of one of his friends. He said he could hook me up with her, and he wouldn't be a part of it. I started getting uncomfortable and told him that I was only 17, but he still pushed and asked if I was legal, so I prefaced again that I was only 17. We made it to the subway, and I got out, and he offered to give me money. I declined, and he offered to wait on me. I declined on that too. After I almost made it to the door, he called me over and said he could take me out. He said he paid me, and he only wanted to hold hands. I said no thanks, and my grandma will be there shortly to get me, which I think scared him, because I head in and he was gone. I quickly made my way back to the McDonald's and almost cried out of how scared I was. I was sad, angry, and even happy. The only thing I could think was to laugh it off. I don't think I'm going to walk around and get in people's cars, even if they have a nice intent, ever again. Quite a few years ago, long before my haunted restaurant days, I did in-home care for the county that I lived in. And that particular job entailed me from traveling from home to home every other day. I met the peeping Tom of the story at my second client's apartment that day. He was introduced to me by my client as the maintenance man for the apartment complex that she lived in. He would just do basic handyman fix-it duties in the tenants' apartments, as well as the yard work around the small complex. I say small complex because the apartment complex was only 2 stories tall and had only about 20 or so apartments in it. On the day that the maintenance man and I were introduced, everything seemed fine and normal. No red flags as yet. My client and I talked with him over lunch. Since she was a nice person, and he had come over on a short notice to fix her faucet leaking, he told us a little about his wife and kids and how much he loved playing outdoors on his expansive property in their new side-by-side ATV. He even wasn't even joking when he said that if I was near his neck of the woods, that I would stop by and meet his family and take a ride on a side-by-side to tour the woodsy property with its beautiful views if I wanted to. Fast forward a few weeks later, when I needed to hire him at my new house to do some emergency plumbing, because my normal plumber was away on vacation time. My client agreed that he would be a great fit for the job, plus he would really need the extra money. So she gave me his business card, and I called him up to schedule for the next morning. He showed up on time and did the work, although I did find it, to be honest, a little bit janky, if I may say so. He did work. It was just that he didn't even bother to get the right parts to make the plumbing permanent, so I ended up with a sort of a long-term temporary fix. Everything was fine after he did the job. He left still, showing no red flags or anything, until later that month. That is when he began to call me for really weird reasons. Like he would just want to know if I was working with the client the next day or whatever. He wanted to know that because, according to him, he needed to do some work that she called him about, but he wasn't able to reach her on the phone. Weird, I thought, especially since I thought he had worked on our apartment complex almost every weekday. So why wouldn't he just knock on her door or let the manager know? I brushed it off, considering I just moved into that house, and I had a lot of work to do to make it more livable and comfortable. But soon enough, the calls came more and more frequent. Over the next couple of weeks, until I woke up with 17 voicemails from him in one morning. Enough was enough with that. I decided right then, and so, when I went to work for my client the next day, I showed her all of his voicemails. She was absolutely appalled at seeing them all, and she immediately called the apartment manager and informed them of the situation with the maintenance man. I would be lying to say that it wasn't totally awkward after my client made that phone call, but unfortunately, it was. At first, I was able to simply ignore him and go on about my job, and I wouldn't be writing this if that all was what really was. The calls began to really ramp up this time. Eventually, they turned to inconsistent texts, and some were almost inappropriate in nature. They were all still nonetheless quite creepy indeed. To my great dismay, though, I thought I was beginning to hear something strange outside my house at night. At first, I figured that was just some local wildlife, which we get a lot around here in this country where I lived in. But since I happened to know a little bit of tracking, I got bored one late afternoon and decided to go out exploring and track a little. I was horrified and found several human man-sized 13-inch outsole boot prints all around my house and field. I brought up my measuring tape to make sure, and sure enough, it looked like as though someone has been trespassing around outside my house and outside my bedroom window. I just knew deep in my gut that that was all the strange sounds I'd been hearing late at night. I went out to the local electronics store the very next day after I got off work and purchased a motion sensor night vision camera for still pictures and a small night vision live camera for outside that I could see on my TV. At first, unfortunately, the game camera didn't really come up with any good pictures except for some deer and a skunk. But one night, as I sat there in front of my TV all by myself, I decided to switch from the satellite dish to the live camera that I had placed outside a couple of days prior. I didn't see anything at all for the first few minutes, but that all quickly changed. I began to hear the faint and familiar sounds of light footfalls outside. Then, to my absolute and complete horror, I watched on my TV as a man in a dark hoodie walked right past my camera. I instantly froze, not knowing what to do. I didn't dare move a muscle or even breathe as I listened to him creep past outside my window. In my mind, my heartbeat must have been audible for him to slip past outside. I don't know why I didn't call the cops right then and there, but I figured he was probably already gone since all had gone silent outside once again. It wasn't until 2 weeks later, when I returned home from work, to find both my front security screen that I had locked standing open along with the previous locked front door gate open, that I was forced to call the police finally. They sent an officer out, but all he could really do was look at the footprints outside my bedroom window and take a report. And that, my friends, are true scary stories. If you are awake, please check out the next video in the playlist. If you are asleep, maybe you can possibly hear me in your dreams. But be careful. Don't get lost in the dark.